Go ahead.
Let me try without saying We're gonna start the same way you start your podcast. I'm Josh.
I'm Joe.
And this is DM Tips episode number 2.
Where
we talk about, I don't know what the title is going to be yet, but we're going to talk about how to start your first quest, part 1.
Well, part 1.
Because we're going to focus mainly on the big bad evil guy aspect of games, or role playing games.
Yeah.
So one of the best ways to start I wouldn't say the best ways, but one of the easiest ways to unite the party in a singular goal, like the first quest, is to just have someone more evil than the party that they don't like. He doesn't even have to necessarily be evil. Just make him unlikable. I've seen that's more of a driving force than it is to just wipe out evil for the party.
Well, I think what you need to do when you build your big bad, your first quest should really either going to be going after something or someone. You have to have an end goal. Like when we started with the how to get everything together, you need to have an end goal. And the end goal, primarily most of the time, is how do we stop the big bad? Now, to make a good big bad, he can't be just evil for the sake of being evil.
Right, and you also don't need to introduce the big bad right off the bat either. You can kind of just have, like, there's something that needs to be addressed right away.
Yeah.
Because bad things will happen if not, mm-hmm. and then you could find out later on that it's being, headed by the big bad evil guy.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of different big bad evil guys. It always isn't just the strongest, most evilest character in the universe.
No.
You could have one that's just basically a crazy warlord of some sort, just trying to go for a land grab and just killing a bunch of people because that's just the cost of war. You could have like evil politician.
Oh, that's always helpful.
Just trying to, gain power politically. And if his party comes into power, the area he's ruling over is going to change drastically. You could have some sort of high priest of some sort trying to usher in, more of his evil god's power.
Yeah. So what we want to talk about here is religion and politics and dictatorship.
That's what it all comes down to, obviously.
Yeah, when you want to make the big bad, you also have to make some lieutenants. Like, for every emperor, you have to have a Vader.
Right. I mean, if you could even take the format that Super Mario Brothers uses.
Oh,
and
God.
You need to go and take care of all the Koopa brothers first.
Yeah.
In each one of their respective castles before you get to Bowser's castle. You don't necessarily have to do 8 worlds.
No.
But
God, I hope not.
You kind of want to. I think it's more fulfilling to the party if you don't have them fight the big evil guy right away. If they kind of like have to dismantle his infrastructure first, and it's really it's a lot of fun for me as a DM anyway to kind of have the big bad evil guy kind of getting panicked by the party's actions, and then he ultimately always has like an ace up his sleeve.
Yes.
That just kind of flips everything up on its head, and the party wasn't really expecting it.
Right.
Now, you don't really want to kind of put too much GM fiat in that and just be like, oh, well, you took care of all the warlord's lieutenants, you got rid of all of his armies, he's the only man left standing, and then he rips open a wormhole and then like a million demons come in. It's kind of silly. Don't do it that way, but just have like maybe hints to what his like nuclear option was.
Yeah.
Without actually revealing it.
And then make an entire night or two of just stopping the nuclear option.
Yeah.
What you want to do is you want to have a villain that basically, when you're world building, and this is kind of what we're talking about in world building, what the big evil is or what evil is in your world is important. Like, take Star Trek, for example. Star Trek, the big evil early on was the Klingons and the Romulans. And that's all political stuff, and they ran into random gods. Well, that's fine. But they made like Khan, which had nothing to do with anything. It was actually a past. And Khan ended up in the movies being the big bad of all big bads, but no one really saw it coming. And maybe that's what you want to start off with. Introduce a character, you're like, yeah, we beat this guy, and now we're just kind of leave him to his own devices, and then find out later he's the real big bad.
Right. It's just a lot of fun too to the big reveal of the big bad is a big deal too.
Yes.
A lot of bigs, but if you can, one of the most fun ways as a DM, again, this is mostly for your benefit as a DM, not necessarily the players, but they could appreciate this.
Yes,
but
they
really,
should.
but really, if you're having fun doing this is great. But if you introduce like an NPC that is friendly to the party and travels with the party, and they become friends with him, you can either have the big bad evil kill him off, and then that would make them hate him even more, and that's really his way to establish him as the big bad evil guy, or make him the big bad evil guy the whole time.
Oh yeah,
and
the traitor reveal.
Just have him, just basically have him pull a reverse Flash, where he's like, every time you guys fucked up, it wasn't because you out of game rolled poorly. It's because he sabotaged you guys every step of the way.
That could even be a player character too.
Yeah. If you allow something like that, that's always a lot of fun. It's you just have to try to find a way to be able to pass notes to that player without the others getting suspicious. Because
that's stuff that you do prior to game anyway.
In the games that I run, this is an anecdote type thing I'm going on here, but I always encourage passing notes to me to keep secrets.
Yeah.
But no one ever really elects to do it. And the problem that creates is that when someone does elect to do that, then they're doing something sinister every single time.
Oh yeah.
Why would you want to keep secrets from the party then?
Well,
so I think the best way to counter that, I guess, is something I need to deploy if I really want them to start passing notes. Is just start passing. Be the one that starts the note passing. Just anytime something happens to a player that the other characters aren't around to hear, you only give them the information in note form. And I have been doing that in some ways, but not to the extent that it opens the option for the players to pass notes without it seeming sinister every single time.
No, what we used to do is...
I can cut you off, but real quick. Yeah, if you're playing online with people, it's way fucking easier.
Oh, it's so much easier.
But if you're at a table, obviously, people are going to visually see you passing notes. But
what we used to do is basically someone would be like, can I have the door? And then we stop game, the DM would come up, go outside in the hallway, you'd have the door, can't hear anything, because by that time everyone wants to take a break. You know, if you're an hour in or an hour and a half in, how was your day? What's going on with the girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. And then you guys are talking over it, and you can't hear anything that's going outside the door.
Right. Yeah, that's a good idea.
In the age of technology, you can just DM everything anyway, or IM. So you can get away with it, but it's just like you don't want to GM that's basically every 5 seconds going, oh, message, and you see someone texting, so it's kind of hard to do too. And that's like the same thing with passing notes. The other big thing when creating your big bad and your kind of the dark side of your world, you want to make sure that your big bad is tough. You don't want to make him a wimp.
Yeah, you want to make him. Yeah, you want to make him seem almost impossible to defeat.
Yeah.
At the beginning. Obviously, as your party grows and gets more experience points and gets stronger, they're going to have new ways to try and tackle him. But yeah, if he's a pushover, then they're not really going to care, or they're going to become too brave, and they're going to just be like, oh, we're going to go inside the castle and just attack him right away, and then they all die because you didn't make him seem strong enough. You need to make him seem strong right from the get-go, otherwise they're going to be, too foolhardy and just go, head forward into him.
Yeah, and maybe at that point in time you want that to happen so they can fall into that trap. Or what you could do is there's always big bads that are just annoying. Like, like the nerds from Buffy from that one season that just honestly just give us Dark Willow, thank God. That were just fucking annoying, and they weren't big bads. And then when they got power, they were kind of beaten one episode. It didn't really matter. You don't want to have... You can have a lieutenant be an annoying character that just pokes at the party and does stuff like that. Your big bad shouldn't be annoying at all.
And you also want to try to think of ways for the party to defeat him in the beginning. Because if you create a big bad evil guy and they take too long to kind of defeat him... Personally, sometimes I get burnt out on my own big bad evil guys, where I'm like, okay, you guys have been fighting this guy for years, and it's just so boring now.
Yeah.
I need to get new plot, fresh meat in here.
Yeah.
So you need to think of ways to kind of open doors for them to finish it up easier if you get bored with it. Because if you're bored with it, then it's gonna reflect, I feel, in your game.
And
you're gonna get lazier.
Yes.
So you don't want to be. you want to make it interesting for yourself as well. Obviously for the players, but for yourself, because if you're not interested in it, then I don't think they're going to be really interested in it either.
Yeah, and what you need to do with your villain at one point in time, you do need him to F up once. You do need like a scenario where basically he does something stupid or breaks an alliance that he already has, and then it makes it a little bit easier. You can't constantly have him win. You can't Game of Thrones your way through it.
And you can establish him as this like unbeatable foe, but then if you kind of humanize him almost by making him fuck up, then maybe that kind of breathes new life in the player's will to continue. Because if you're just beating him down the whole time, they're not gonna have fun.
No.
But if you show that he fucks up every once in a while, and then they can kind of capitalize on that, then they become more heroic.
Yeah.
Make sure he has flaws. Obviously he's gonna be flawed. He's evil if unless you're one of the people who says evil is not flawed or something like that, but
don't be that guy. Yeah, because no one wants to roleplay with that guy.
That's that guy.
Yeah, that guy. As far as GMs go, that's that guy. What you could also do too is, depending on the world, if it's a fantasy environment, you could have him basically take over an entire race. Like if say he takes over the Elven world. Well, now there might be an Elven resistance. Like your characters are part of it, or maybe one of your characters is an elf trying to get party members in. What you want to do with the big bad is have him connect on a personal level with your characters. Maybe even for a few of them, not all of them, but a few of them from the get-go. One or two characters that are deeply affected by the big bad, and that's their end goal. That really helps along the way too, because if you have a character that basically is maybe a little bit revenge driven, that helps, because that character will keep the party moving towards the end goal no matter what.
Yeah, and it makes it way easier for the plot to flow than if you have one character that is tied to it, but still try to make it interesting for the rest of the party. Yeah. Because, for example, in one of my recent games, the big bad evil guy was a lich, and there was one player that was a kinslayer Dampier who just hated undead, and that was his purpose, was to hunt undead. So as soon as he found out about this lich, that's all he focused on, and he dragged the party with him almost. Yeah. The rest of the party didn't really care too much. They just wanted to help out that player more than anything, or that character rather. So it did kind of it was one of those instances where I had to kind of end it early, or not early, but I needed to make it easier for them because they weren't progressing at all. This guy was just too powerful, so I kind of had to nerf him a little bit at the end. But you can have him. You obviously want to make him powerful in the beginning, but then show that he is defeatable later on.
Yeah, and that's where their lieutenants come in. Like, you can run into a lieutenant that's just a hobgoblin, say it's fantasy, and basically beat him up first game or second game. You also want to make sure that everyone's time's precious, especially with role-playing. Now, a lot of my role-playing used to be done in college where you had a semester, and that was it. By the end of the semester, the story should be over. Sometimes we carried it over into the next semester, but by then everybody was... it worked, and sometimes it did, and sometimes it didn't. You want to make sure that when you have your big bad, you have enough obstacles that'll last you for the time frame, or you want to eliminate obstacles because you just don't have that much time. You don't want to spend 4 nights on the hobgoblin that's 5th level while the rest of your party is 3rd. Right. You don't want to waste everyone's time with that. What you want to do is progress forward in some manner. Know that you are kind of, as a DM, you are on a ticking clock sometimes. You just don't know it. Things happen. Both of us are running campaigns where we have about 8 or 9 people, and one night 2 people show up.
That happens pretty often. So you kind of want to be able to balance plot related to the main quest on each one of the players. So they have something to do if that happens, where some players just don't show up some nights. Yeah. But also, don't be afraid to let your players just fail altogether. Yeah. Where they lose. Like, they get to the big fight against big bad evil guy and they lose. You don't necessarily have to kill them all, but they lose, and the big bad evil guy gets what he wants. And that could be an opportunity, if we go back to world building, where that shapes, the game from that point forward. Or, they find out that he's just, you made him way too powerful, whether you intended to or not, and they need to sort of you have to realize that even though the players are the heroes of their story, they may not be the heroes of maybe this story. Yes. And they need to kind of make allies with people that are stronger than them to actually defeat this guy.
Yeah.
So
in the last one, I talked about like the campaign that lasted an entire year just to get back at somebody. In that campaign, what we did was make sure, because it lasts about an entire school year, we based that campaign on something that we did the year before. So we knew there were more powerful characters out there. And maybe that's something that if you are in a world that it already exists and this is your third time going around, you might want to bring in PCs that are now kind of almost, or people that played and now make them NPCs and give them those kind of allies. And it'd be kind of fun for those characters to see them again.
Oh yeah, throwback characters are
the best.
always
Yeah.
a hit with the players. But if you're playing with a group of new players and they aren't really sure what they need to be doing all the time, another way to kind of not necessarily whip them into shape, but whip them into shape.
Yeah.
Always think about what your big bad evil guy is actively doing, and then if the party makes a mistake, make him capitalize on that, so that they can learn to either not make as many mistakes or learn from him and capitalize on his mistakes when he does make some.
Yeah.
So that will, because otherwise everyone's just kind of, otherwise they may just kind of be going with the flow and they'll be like, oh, well, if I make a mistake, I make a mistake. But if you kind of drive the message home that making mistakes is going to cost you dearly, then that will kind of make them better players, and also their characters will become wiser. So
don't be afraid to kill the characters. Now, if this is the first time you're ever doing it with new people, I would not suggest doing that. If this is, again, like I said, with our past campaign, and that first night, a lot of us died due to someone's stupidity. That's fine. The first time you guys are role-playing it, don't go out of your way making a big bad that basically murders everyone or half the party in the first night. Because people are going to be pissed. What you want to do is save that death for somewhere between a quarter or halfway. You got to kill one of the characters. I mean, you have to. They can't be unkillable gods. You have to kill them. Straight up. And then they're going to remember that. And sometimes player characters get bored with playing characters too. It might be a mercy kill.
Yeah.
Like, no, I don't want to play this character anymore. He's done. He was a one-note character.
You don't have to kill a character when the player's tired of him either. You can just kind of let them retire that character. And even if they never want to play it again, they can just sort of relinquish it as an NPC that will come back later on.
I would just straight up kill him.
I tend not to, because sometimes I feel like sometimes the players make characters that are interesting enough to belong in my worlds. But
there's that. But if it's a character that's a one-note thing that basically you're tired of the character, the player never shows up, just straight up.
Oh yeah. Then don't worry about it.
Yeah, just kill that character.
Or just let the party do it as for fun, or make the big bad evil guy kill him and just just kill him.
Yeah.
But
and also kill a character that basically the party loves.
Yes.
There is nothing that will bring the party together than having a lovable character. I don't care who it is. Kill that character.
Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a player character, but
yes.
Regardless, what, if you can think of it, what was your favorite big bad evil guy you've ever made? Can you think of one?
Well, again, it was the same. There's two that I ever made. That's hard.
It doesn't. Okay, if you have two, you can just do both of them.
One was the player character that turned out to be the big bad in the next campaign.
So if you want to hear about that one, that was in the last episode.
That was the last one. The one character I did make for a campaign, I believe it was Star Wars, where they went chasing after holocrons for like a year, and he was kind of the will of the Force. So I just basically took all the stats that were in the Star Wars role-playing book and made him the Emperor and then beefed him up a little bit. But he was a character that just constantly he would wreck the party every time they ran into him. He was a cool character to play because what they're fighting isn't something like, it isn't Vader, it isn't the Emperor, like people who are after power. It is the Force they're fighting, and that was kind of a cool character to make it. For me, what I like is an antagonist that isn't all around evil. I'd like to put people in situations where basically the adventure is more like the situation more than having a big bad.
Right, and your big bad evil guy doesn't necessarily need to be an individual. It could be more of a force of nature.
Yeah.
And rather than having to just kill somebody, they need to find a solution to this problem. And the one of my favorite big bad evil guys I made was a specific creature, but essentially, when I started the campaign, the party were part of this mining operation in a dwarven mine, and they were mining these weird crystals that they'd uncovered, and they were all different colors and stuff, and each one had different magic properties. And essentially, at one point there was like a cave-in, and it freed this gigantic magical construct dragon that was made of these crystals. Mm-hmm. And the party felt responsible because they sort of were, so they kind of wanted to hunt it down. They were employed by some people to hunt it down, and they weren't necessarily like super into defeating this thing, just other than the fact that it would have been cool.
Yeah.
But the way they came up with to defeat it was essentially, in order to, it was a dragon, but it was also a construct. And in order to, in the world that I was playing in, you could bind dragons with certain spells if you knew their names. This creature had a name as well, but nobody could speak the name because it was a magical construct. So they needed to have a magical construct speak the name in order to bind it. So they went around collecting all these powerful artifacts that would create their own magical construct, and then they had to teach it how to create binding magics. And they named it Steve. And then I killed it.
Yeah.
And the party was pissed.
Yeah.
But they wanted to kill this thing even more then.
Yeah.
And they eventually did. But, you know, they basically, they had like this baby they were babysitting.
Yeah.
They watched it grow up and they taught things.
Yeah.
And I just killed the fucker. And that kind of drove the message home that, you know, you don't fuck around with this thing.
Right.
And you really need to kill it, otherwise things are going to get ugly. So...
But there are some pitfalls, especially with fantasy, of just using... I mean, dragons are cool, by the way. That's a cool concept. I've always wanted to have a dragon be the big bad. You don't always want to use Death Knight, especially when they have power word kill. That's just... That's tough.
Well...
You want to use them as lieutenants.
You're the DM or the GM. They don't have to have things you don't want them to have.
Yeah, but I'd still like to have power word kill.
Oh, it's always fun.
It's awesome because it's like, boom, and you're done. We're done here. Like, if you're playing Star Wars, not everything has to be related to the Skywalker family. Like, the big bad could be a Hutt. The big bad could be just a random gangster. It could just be an Imperial officer. In Star Trek, that's kind of, depending on what you're doing, you know, in original series, it's the Klingons and the Romulans. Next gen, it's the Borg. But you can't beat the Borg. I don't care how many fucking episodes of Voyager you watch. You can't beat them. There are some, when you deal with like these properties, you shouldn't go up against. Would you take on Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet?
Him having the Infinity Gauntlet?
Yeah.
No, absolutely not.
Exactly.
Never.
So stay away from that kind of stuff is what I'm saying. Like, don't go after the Emperor. Stay away from things like Darkseid and the DC Universe. Yeah. Unless your characters are those two and a Superman and a Wonder Woman, you're not going to take them. Mine is specifically with properties. You don't want to go up against things that, one, you know in continuity you can't beat. You know that your characters can't beat Vader and the Emperor until basically they can't.
Yeah, if you're playing a game that has established lore, do not have them fight the established lore big bad evil guy.
Unless you're going to make them constantly escape.
Yeah, so you want to avoid that. I mean, you can do it if you really want to, but then realize... I mean, I guess it's ultimately up to you. If you want to sort of cheapen those villains, then be my guest. But you're gonna piss somebody off doing that.
Yeah, because
and also, I mean, there's gonna be just gonna piss people off doing that because then people are gonna argue, how the fuck did I kill Vader? There's no way I should ever be able to do that.
I'll give you the perfect example of this. There was a card game. The Cypher had a Star Wars card game that Wizards of the Coast bought, and it was awful. It was so bad that 3PO beat Dooku. That should never fucking happen. So, also, when you build your big bad, make sure they can't die to an onslaught of 10 first-level characters. Make sure you have something in there, whether a spell, a force ability, a grenade, whatever, to take out people that are less than him at some point in time. Now, if they're 5th level and he's 10th level, and it's a swarm of 5 or 6 people.
Yeah, and they do it in a smart way. Then obviously
let them take it out.
I feel like even if you're obviously going to envision the way they're going to win the game, and you need to sort of realize when you're wrapping things up that the party may not get things exactly right how you plan them to.
Yeah, but that's part of GMing.
Yeah,
you
so
have to.
You need to sort of change things in your end game because you obviously you start your quest, you have your big bad evil guy, and then you have the way you envision it's going to end.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, it's not going to end that way.
Yeah. And what you could always do is to fake out big bad. Like you could always be like, there's a big bad that's bigger than this big bad. And you don't know it until he's gone.
But just be ready to adapt to what your party comes up with because they're not reading your mind.
Yeah.
They may come up with something more creative than you thought, and you can reward them for that. Or if they really if they're struggling with it, there's a limit to how much they can struggle. If obviously they're struggling, that's fine. But if they're struggling to the point where they're just bored and they don't even want to play anymore,
then
you need to sort of throw them a fucking bone.
Yeah, you have to give them you got to make a sacrificial lieutenant. Let them kill a Dengar or something, in Star Wars, or let them kill a medium red dragon, or let them blow up a Romulan starbase or something.
Yeah, or just have someone defect from the big bad guy's forces.
And that's also cool too. And you might be through the course of the campaign because Star Wars is one, and even in Dungeons and Dragons, it's a little hard in Star Trek and Doctor Who and everything else. Seduce them at times to the dark side.
Oh, yeah.
Seduce them. Because your player character may end up killing them. Like, if you have a paladin, but the way he beats them is attacking from behind. Yeah,
well, that depends on how you treat it in the lore. If the paladin's attacking from behind, there's some... You need to establish your lore first.
Yeah.
But you need to make them aware of it, too.
Oh, yeah.
Don't let someone play a paladin and then they attack someone from behind and then suddenly you punish them for that. They need to be aware beforehand that they can't do these things.
Yeah. I mean, if you're playing a Dark Jedi, we spend dark side points to basically beat that person, And in fantasy, if you basically... How you kill the big bad sometimes determines, like, are you keeping... If it's a character that basically was alignment...
When you seduce them... Make it really easy for them to succeed, because then they'll want it even more. And if they ultimately become evil, well, you can just kill them.
Nope.
Or you can have heroes show up and kill them. Or
they're your new big bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can take it in a multitude of ways, and just I guess the biggest thing is, the one that I employ all the time is be ready to adapt to the player's decisions, because I run campaigns that don't have an end in sight. Mm-hmm. They're ongoing forever until. Everybody in real life dies.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know.
Are you planning my death?
No, I'm just saying if I died, then obviously it's not
now.
going to continue. But until then, I'm going to keep running as long as people are willing to play.
Yeah.
But just be ready to adapt your headcanon to what they decide to do.
Yeah. And it's very difficult sometimes where you're like, well, I want this thing to be the big bad, and then by like week 5, everyone's bored with it.
Yeah.
It might be time to be like, all right, let's shuffle this up. All right, he can be the big bad for 2 more weeks, but have something else in your back pocket. Or just let them open world and they'll run into random things.
Yeah.
That seems like what everyone's doing, running around with these Pokemon Go's and, finding dead bodies. This is the world we live in now. I just wanted to take a shot at those idiots. Anyway, but really, what you should really do is, for as much time as you spend world building about characters and your own NPCs, take more time to build the villains. Because the villains make a campaign. Star Wars is popular because of Vader. Fantasy is popular because we have dragons and Death Knights and, goblins and, crazy stuff. Like, the villains, you can't have a good heroes without having a good villain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So... that's really all there is to say.
Yeah.
I guess the biggest things I would try to take from this is just be ready to adapt. If the big bad evil guy doesn't drive the point home, you could even scrap him and try something else.
Yeah.
But make him interesting, or the party won't really care that much.
Yeah, and too, the other thing you want to think about too is, you have your big bad. Lieutenants are also important. Like, again, I hate harping on it, but Vader's a lieutenant at the end of the day. The Batman Rogues Gallery, Harley's a lieutenant. To some degree, they're basically all lieutenants except for Joker. You want to make sure that you have enough villains there to fill out the gaps. Make sure when you're building your big bad, build his army with it. because someone just doesn't magically appear like I'm the big bad.
Yeah.
There has to be supporters to whatever he's doing. There's always crazy, stupid people.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it works in the real world
Hopefully,
too.
those crazy, stupid people watch these videos and then they
we
get smarter.
Yeah,
So-
we're not going to say that because we honestly and we appreciate the comments that are
Oh
coming.
yeah. If you have any comments or anything like that in the stuff,
Yeah.
I wasn't referring to the people that will actually look forward to seeing this video. I mean, people that stumble upon it as they're frothing at the mouth, looking for Pokemon Go guides.
We're Trump 2016 campaigns.
There you go. There's Big Bad Evil Guy right there.
Oh my God! You couldn't ask for a better villain.
Okay, that's an interesting idea. Is have them have to choose between the lesser of two evils.
You mean like we're gonna do in November? Yeah.
Yeah.
I still vote Hillary.
Because I
Sorry.
mean, yeah.
That's
Or
it.
maybe you want to spare them from that fate because they're already living it. I mean, it's up to you as a DM.
Yeah.
You are God.
And really, and like we said before, it might the big bad may be someone who basically can buy off characters too.
Yeah, or you make him an Ozymandias somehow. If you're a genius level DM and you can make him an Ozymandias where you kind of agree with him at the end.
No, you don't agree with them at the end, Josh.
You kind of do. He has a point.
Nothing ever ends, Josh.
I'm just saying. If
Nothing
you
ever
if
ends.
you can make them sympathize with the villain towards the end, that's another way to take this. But
Yeah.
anyway, if you have any suggestions for another episode, put them in the comments below.
Yeah. Or if you or in the comments below, write down what big bad you faced off against or you created. That way, other people can get an idea. Maybe an exchange of ideas. So anything else?
Yeah, that's about it for me.
All right. This is Joe.
And I'm Josh.
Bye.